morning is Sarah Masick. Sarah is a licensed social worker at Beatitude House in Ashtabula. Beginning her education right here at Penn State University, Ashtabula, Sarah survived 6 internships, 5 all here in this county and the 6th in Asia, and finished with a graduate degree from Case Western Reserve University. It was as executive director of the nonprofit Spiderweb that Sarah realized her interest in nonprofit capacity building. After 3 years of strengthening Spiderweb's organizational and financial stability, she moved on to obtain her social work master's degree in community and social development and nonprofit management. As a member of the Young Professionals of Ashtabula County, a mediator for the county courthouse, and a volunteer for the United Way, Sarah hoped to continue her career here. She was rewarded through her hire at Beatitude House as site director, then as transitional housing director. Although she failed to ever become a child prodigy, she is quite content instead to be recognized as this year's top 5 under 45 in Ashtabula County. Thank you. Sarah?
Good morning. I often get asked 2 questions. The first is it Sister Sarah? Because we have a number of Ursuline sisters who work at the Beatitude House. And not being Catholic myself, I only think of the film 2 Mules for Sister Sarah, the Clint Eastwood film, that she was really not a good nun at all. And the second question I get asked is, the what house? The Attitude House? And I have to remind people what they learned in Sunday school about the Beatitudes. But since we have clergy here this morning, I thought the clergy representative could tell us what the Beatitudes are. Blessed are the...
Blessed, it's all the blessings.
That's how we got out of that one. Well, I'm so appreciative to be so honored to be invited here this morning. As of Sunday, Beatitude House is exactly 18 months old here in Ashtabula, and the community has been so supportive. And I'm wondering actually this morning, how many of you, before the name was on the PowerPoint, had ever heard of Beatitude House? Wonderful, this is excellent. I'm very glad to see that. How about, for those of you, the very few who haven't heard of us and don't know where we are located in the old St. Joseph School, which is behind the St. Joseph Catholic Church on Lake Avenue in Ashtabula. And how many of you have been, show your age, it's okay, how many of you have been in the school when it was a school? All right, okay. And how many have been in there since it's been renovated into apartments for transitional housing? Wonderful, this is wonderful. For those of you who have not, please do come by for a tour. The Beatitude House is not a private location, and there's a number of interesting things that we can show you on a tour that do not invade anyone's privacy. So I encourage you to call or stop by for a tour anytime and see the place. They've done a wonderful job in the renovations. Excuse me. I'm going to bring the water up here.
Blessed are the horse and throat.
Right there, pretty friend. Thank you. I'm watching the time already. Being open 18 months has been a wonderful experience for me. I'm very proud to be there, and I am very excited to be talking about it this morning. Many of you have already known something about the Beatitude House, so I'm going to try to talk and share things today that maybe you didn't know already, that are a little bit different and a little bit hopefully interesting. I'm going to start off by sharing a little bit about the Lifetime Movie Network and how the Lifetime Movie Network can be an inspiration. Then we're going to talk about what we actually do and how we've built the work that we do on the shoulders of others at the Beatitude House and in the community and how we measure that. And finally, I'm going to talk about how the ideas that I have that we can make Ashtabula County a better place to live, work, and play, because I believe that's why you're all here this morning. Oh my God, I just realized my life is a Lifetime movie. For any of you who have seen Lifetime movies on the Lifetime Movie Network, they are typically drama-filled, trauma-filled films about people overcoming adversity. Watch a marathon of Lifetime movies about shocking romantic mistakes to feel marginally better about our own bad judgment. Cheat on me, they will make a Lifetime movie about what I do to you. Some of these movies are events. The film that we're discussing that was an inspiration for Beatitude House was not vengeful at all. It was called God Loves the Child, and it's the story of a homeless mother and her child, and how they are caught in the cycle of poverty and homelessness, and the mother is then unable to keep her child safe because of this cycle. Sister Margaret Sheets, an Ursuline sister who's actually a math teacher, saw the film on Lifetime Movie Network. Instead of just putting away the Kleenex and shrugging her shoulders and going on with life, she decided to do something about it. In 1991, she started with 4 apartments for transitional housing, and since then it's grown to 63. These are throughout the 3 counties of Ashtabula, Trumbull, and Mahoning. There are also some permanent supported housing units for families with more severe needs, and a Potter's Wheel for English language learners and career services, a Green Clean for a job training, employment, and work experience where the employees actually have company ownership, and that operates in Mahoning County. I would actually like to take a moment to play a quick video.
We have a lot of people that are in need in Ashtabula County. We see these young families, these women and these children, who we feel deserve better than they have.
There are so many gifts that these people have that they're never able to express because of certain situations in their family. And as a community, we all miss out because of that. So that's why I think Beatitude House is the answer.
The success of the program over the last 20 years, that really inspired us. We said to each other, well, maybe what we can do is go down to see if the Beatitude House would be interested in expanding Ashtabula.
In Ashtabula County, we'll be starting construction in the next few weeks.
If there's anything that we can do to give them an opportunity to at least have a chance, that's what we're doing.
You get that chance to work on yourself and to work on those goals at Beatitude House.
I want to finish my career next May and then get a job, doing something, trying to give back to the community.
My goal is now to get my bachelor's degree in communications. I'm already currently in school at YSU. I have a job as a technician at Eye Care Associates. I work full-time and go to school part-time.
I would like to design my own successful reentry program for women transitioning from prison with nowhere to go. And I feel that Beatitude House is a solid blueprint for that program.
I have been working in the county field for 10 years, but now I work at Eastern Gateway, the community college.
I have a lot of goals, a lot of dreams.
People really get your life together at Beatitude.
Things aren't going to be perfect. You know, you may leave this program, and 10 years later, you know, you may be struggling, you may be this and that, but you know what? You still have a lot more tools to survive, and you're never going to be in the position that you were in before you came here.
It's more than just the time that you're there. They're there. They know you. You're part of their family.
I think Beatitude saved my life.
Without this program, I know I wouldn't be here. Literally, I would not be here.
They really gave me the dream I never thought I could have. And to this day, I'm very thankful, Sister Pat.
Thank you for being there when I didn't have anywhere to go, and all the help and the support.
Thank you. Without them, I don't know where I would be.
I'm a movement by myself. When I'm with you, you make me better.
The last woman before the singer always gets me because she said, "You're there when I had nowhere else to go." And I hear that every day when people come in the door wanting to apply for the Beatitude House. We have 55 families, I believe, today on our wait list, which means that 55 families in the community of women with children who are homeless. And homeless can mean a lot of different things. So the first thing we do when an apartment opens up is we go straight to the wait list and we look at people who are in the most severe need. So we do have homeless on the streets or in the shelters, in the domestic violence shelter. We also have families who are bouncing from couch to couch, surfing. We also have families who are living with family members who they're not on a lease and they can be evicted at any moment. We also have families who are living with 7 people, 2 children, and 6 dogs, and mold. So there's a range of different needs on the list, and most of the women there are coming from generational poverty. Some of them are coming from situational poverty, which means that something happened in their life, like a divorce or an illness, that put them in a situation where they just need the opportunity to get back up again. But not having a job is hard to get when you don't have a license, and getting a license is hard to get when you don't have insurance, and insurance is hard to get when you don't have a job. So there are a lot of obstacles that Sister Margaret Sheets recognized in the video that really demonstrate how the women could benefit from transitional housing. In our mission statement, we are sponsored by the Ursuline Sisters of Youngstown. And what I find interesting about that is the Ursuline Sisters started in 1540 in Italy as an inspiration from God to Sister Angela Morici to found a community of women to meet the needs of the times. And the needs of those times were to educate young women on the streets. They were meeting regularly with these young girls to teach them the values and skills they needed to become a valuable member of society. Almost 500 years later, we're still doing that through Beatitude House. I think that's incredible. Our mission statement is committed to all disadvantaged women and children. You can see in the center is a photo of our new executive director, Sister Janet Gardner. It's about creating homes. As you can see, if you haven't seen, the apartments are absolutely gorgeous. They've done wonderful work with them, thanks to the support of the community. Providing educational opportunities. All of our women come in with an education plan. That could mean Ken Ashtabula. We've had students at Ken Ashtabula for the first time. It could mean an STNA license. It could mean ATEC. It could mean online education. It could mean following through with their drug treatment. It could mean following through with their GED. So there are a number of things on the education plan, but everyone has to have an education plan, and that is part of the plan to pull people out of poverty is through education. Our mission is fostering healthy families. And as you can see, some of the rituals here that might seem typical to you are rituals that are important to a family who's been in crisis, who's been bouncing from house to house, who hasn't had the opportunity to experience a Christmas, have a tree, and do trick-or-treating in a safe neighborhood. And we provide this opportunity so it gives others the opportunity to transform their lives. And for those of you who attended our first birthday party this summer, Beth was our featured speaker, and Beth was a graduate of Beatitude House. If nothing else, it taught her that it's never too late to make changes to your life. It's never too late to find success. Moving to Ashtabula at 18 with her husband, Beth felt she was following her rightful path by starting a family. But as the relationship became abusive, her family life soured, and her dream of domestic bliss vanished as fear and uncertainty set in. After feeling trapped for so long and unsure of her future, Beth realized she was unwilling to keep living in fear and found shelter at Home Safe. They protected her while there and referred her to our more intensive program at Beatitude House, which allowed her to fully stabilize and prevent her from returning to her abuser for a lack of resources. With staff supporting her, Beth assessed what changes she needed to make, developed an education plan, graduated with her STNA license, as you saw earlier. She obtained her driver's license, something she'd never had before, and finalized her divorce. With this newfound confidence, Beth approached her past employer and was able to get back the job she had been fired from the year before. She said their jaws dropped when they saw her, and they were so impressed with the changes that she'd made in such a short time. Everything at Beatitude House played an important part, Beth said. Case management kept me focused on my goals, counseling kept me mentally focused, I felt like I was doing something. Perhaps the biggest impact on her children's lives was the stability and support that came from living at the Beatitude House. Her son's behavior had been exhausting and unmanageable. She was able to get him the medical attention he needed and quoted the encouraging nature of the staff and residents as a driving force behind her success. I had people behind me supporting me, she says. She now has full custody of all 3 of her children. They live in their own apartment. Within just 9 months, she was one of the first program graduates from the Ashtabula site. She was the first one to move into an empty building, brave girl. And her accomplishments continue serving as inspiration for new women looking for a second chance. So you see now how the Lifetime Movie Network can inspire all of you to make a difference. I want to talk about what we actually do and how we measure what we do. I'm a director. My job is day-to-day management and operations. I am so caught up in what we do. When you ask me what I do, I can't wait to tell you what I do, because that's what I do every day, is manage what goes on. However, what we really want to talk about is the difference that we make. Doesn't matter how much work we put in, how many hours we put in, how much sweat goes into it. If we're not making a difference, or the difference is not great, then all the work is for naught. When I think of Sister Margaret Sheets, she was looking at the issue of poverty and homelessness, the cycle. It was a complex problem. I suggest looking at a simple problem like a headache, for example. When you have a headache, what do? How many of you actually go and buy pills? Is there more than one way to treat a headache? Okay, so wait, you're saying even for a simple problem, there's many different solutions to this problem. Interesting. We take pills. Is that enough? It's not enough until we feel better. That's the point of taking it. Taking the pills, doing the action is just what we do. Feeling better is the difference that it makes. And that's really what we're looking for when we're doing anything, whether it's business, nonprofits. And if you can't tell, that poor person is very hungry. Same thing. Getting food, buying food, and eating it is not the end of the solution. The food can be unhealthy, the food can be cake, the food could be spoiled. There could be a lot of different ways in which you eat the food, a lot of which different foods that affect your end product, which is the difference that you make. And whether you feel better now, which we often do with cake, or whether you feel better in the long run, which you often do when you eat healthy. So again, we're looking at what we do versus the difference that we make. This is really called the difference between outputs and outcomes. And for some of you, this may look familiar because this is a basic idea of what a logic model is. I'm going to ask again for a raise of hands if you don't mind. How many of you have heard of what a logic model is? Again, excellent. I have actually been falsely, erroneously attributed as the inventor of the logic model. Possibly because I talk about it so much. However, my coworker, when she heard that, said, "Wow, all these years I've been, I didn't know. Now I'm working for someone who invented the logic model, used across the country, across the world, and you invented it. That's amazing." But I do talk about it a lot, and the reason I talk about it is because sometimes we think we're math geniuses. We sit at the chalkboard and we write out how everything's going to look, and yet somewhere in the middle we think a miracle is going to occur to get what we need to have happen at the end. And he says here, I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. And with the logic model, it's just a flow of logic from beginning to end of what makes the program work, to ensure that there is no miracle happening in the beginning, although we do appreciate the miracles when they do happen, and they do. So what we do, again, I want to talk about what we do. I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are some of the things that we do. When the residents come in, they are expected to be meeting with the case manager to review their goals. Their goals could be to obtain a driver's license, to obtain a vehicle. Their goals could be to create, certainly are to create a stability plan, to create a health plan, to create an education plan, which I discussed. They also have some series of modules that we go through with them, which are financial literacy, time management, career, parenting. And as you can see, the best statistic there is 100% receive mental health services. And that is because we have our partner community counseling center is actually in the building with us 4 days a week. She is on staff there. She is part of our team meetings, and she is there. So her attendance rate for the Beatitude House residents is much higher than your typical client because the transportation is not an issue, the child care may not be an issue because of the situation, and the chaos is less of an issue because they walk in with a crisis And she can be there to discuss the crisis that happened. She can be there to talk to them about rescheduling appointments. She can be there to remind them about their appointments. So there's an interaction, there's a relationship that happens. Do outcomes really matter? Those are all outputs. Those are great. Why do outcomes matter? Brilliant surgery, well done, shame the patient died. I think we do brilliant surgery. I think we do good programs. But again, if the outcome is the patient died, what does that really matter? So these are some of the outcomes that we look at. And again, obtaining permanent housing, 95% is a wonderful statistic when you look at transitional housing across the sites. There are a couple of models out there called either Housing First or Housing Ready. And Housing First model is the one that's popular right now in the government and the government funding. And the Housing First model says that the problem with homeless people is that they lack housing. You give them a key, the rest will follow. Now, I've summarized it quite simplistically, of course, but the idea being that once you get people housing, some of the other things will fall in place. The opposite extreme is Housing Ready, which says that people need to be self-sufficient, they need to have a generational change, and that comes through education, through shelter, through support, and through mental health. Obviously, our transitional housing unit embraces the Housing Ready approach. One of the criticisms of the Housing Ready approach, compared to the Housing First approach, for example, is that it's very costly, and it has varying successes. 95% is a very good success. It's much higher than the criticisms that we have about transitional housing across the country, and their standard, in fact, is somewhere around like 70%. So I think we're doing very well on that, and I think that the generational change and self-sufficiency that we are looking for in our mission is different perhaps than HUD, who is looking to get people off the streets and out of our ERs. We're looking for lasting change because the Housing First model typically approaches supportive housing, which means you're permanently financially supporting them in an apartment, whereas we are actually, for those who are able, looking to transition them into being self-sufficient. Typically, this is the place where I demonstrate or explain that this is one reason why we are not receiving any government funding, and why since the beginning we've had no government funding at the Ashtabula site. We have been completely dependent on and been so appreciative of the community support. However, I am very, very excited and pleased to announce that as of yesterday, I just got the news, we received a large, substantial grant from the state of Ohio for $95,000. Off of my mind because not only because of obviously just the finances are in place, but also because it says something about our agency. When the state of Ohio and the federal government is looking more towards housing first and putting their money there, there's a new transitional housing unit that has had 2 units in Mahoney County and Trumbull County. They know the good work they do, they know the reputation they have that much confidence in us that they're willing to direct those funds to a new transitional housing unit, even though the trend is not in housing ready services right now. So to me that says a wonderful thing about the work that we're doing and the confidence they have in us. The 2 hands in this partnership could be the hand of my case manager and myself. We're the only paid staff in the building. However, they are not the only 2 hands because we have partnerships with everything in the community, everybody in the community. One of the things I said from the beginning is, as a Ashtabula County native myself and having done so many internships in the community and having had so many wonderful experiences here, I know what's available in the community, and there's so many good things already going on here. And so for us to come in and say that we're going to do everything ourselves is not only silly, but it's not helping the family, because what we really want to do is connect the family to the resources in the community, to our ministers, to our ministries, our partner ministries, and to our social service agencies, to our civic organizations. We want to connect and bridge people in poverty back into the community again. And so what we do with our partnerships, as an example of with community counseling, we partnership with Community Action, for example, to come and do part of our financial literacy module. We partnered with the job stores to have some of our career module taken care of. We do Catholic Charities. I mean, every agency that is in the community already, we are partnering with them to be able to include that in our programming. So we talked about the Lifetime Living Network. We talked about what we do and how we measure it, and I'm going to finish by talking about what great things are happening in Ashtabula County. The one great thing that happened was Ashtabula County Family and Children First Council sponsored a cross-training workshop titled Understanding Generational Poverty. This was at the Spire Institute about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And again, I'm going to raise a hand how many people actually attended that particular workshop. Again, excellent. We have a wonderful, well-informed group here. For those of you who were there, you know that they came and talked, they had a speaker talk about how the culture of poverty impacts individuals, families, and our community. And really what they were pointing to was the generational poverty that I pointed to earlier, and a little bit about Bridges Out of Poverty, which is a framework for understanding people who come out of poverty. I'm going to talk some more about it, but I do want to mention if there are any questions or if you're interested in further information or training on this, the Family and Children First Council has included the Bridges Out of Poverty framework as part of their strategic, as a priority that they're going to be including in their strategic plan, which means that you're going to be hearing more about it, that there's going to be kind of just a community directed movement to see how we can implement some of the understanding we have about people in poverty to help the community be better. So I encourage you to contact Louis Strauss, who is actually in the room in the very back.
You don't have to clap.
I brought a few slides. I'm not going, I just want to give a slight taste for those of you who weren't there. For those of you who were there, you already know this. I brought a few slides from the AHA process, which is the getting ahead from, it's from the Bridges Out of Poverty. And one of the classes that we do with our residents is called the Getting Ahead and Just Getting By World. And this is a workbook that people in poverty can use to explore the causes of poverty, why they are in poverty, the resources that they can use to get out of poverty, and to identify the hidden rules of some of the different classes. And I will kind of ignore these slides for a moment to talk about what an impactful class this was. We did this last year for the first time in Ashtabula. We'll be doing it again here after Martin Luther King Day. We'll be starting the next class for this coming year. And it was an incredible experience where 8 graduates came to class every day, every week, no matter what the chaos was in their lives. My jaw dropped because every week they show up on time with homework done. And that's a huge thing for people who may have been coming from domestic violence, may have been coming from a chemical dependency addiction, may have been coming from living on the streets where you were living day to day. They came back and they wanted to talk about the future. They wanted to talk about what they could do. And we had a wonderful opportunity to have Senator Capri Cafaro join us as a co-facilitator, because she was actually working as an intern to receive hours for her social work degree. And so we introduced her as Capri, the intern who's facilitating this group, and everybody nodded and said, okay. And she sat down and she shared experiences from her life. They shared experiences from her life. And what kind of opportunity do you have to have a legislator sit down with people in poverty and hear their stories one-on-one like that? And so she went through the material with them, and at the end we had homework for them that was to, now that you know this information and you want to speak out more, contact your representatives and find out who your representatives are. They come back and you're the senator this whole time? And again, that feeling that somebody who comes from a wealthy class, who comes from a legislative perspective, who works all day here and sponsors a Medicaid bill, takes the time to come down here and listen to my story. That's really, I think, the takeaway for me when it comes to Bridges Out of Poverty, is understanding the hidden rules that are between the classes and taking the time to listen. And I'm not going to take the time to make you listen. We can talk about it. But one of the examples is time as a hidden rule. You can see that there's different perspectives that people in poverty class tend to have about time, people in middle class tend to have, and people in wealthy class tend to have. And really you're looking at the present versus the future versus the past. And again, these are stereotypes, these are just what the majority of things happen to be when you think about people in different classes. So the end result is that people who come from an economic class have an identity that comes with that. And recognizing that and being able to recognize that schools and businesses operate from middle class norms, and use those hidden rules, and we must understand the hidden rules of poverty to be able to teach them those that will make them successful at school, at work, and in the community. And that was a wonderful experience for me to be able to hear straight from them their hidden rules that they didn't realize were hidden, and to be able to communicate, because once we had the same language about the hidden rules, we could then start discussing things that before was just always coming up against a resistance between the two of us, coming from different classes and from different perspectives. Again, this is not excusing them or scolding them. We're just providing support, assistance, and expectations. And that's a good summary of what we do at Beatitude House through the Getting Ahead program. So, it's the season of giving, and people say you should be giving all year round. Your time. You can be giving of your time at Beatitude House by volunteering. If you're interested in volunteering, we do everything from assisting with child activities on Monday nights, to volunteering to tutor for GED, for ESL, to offering to pick up a donation, to coming and sitting in the office and answering the phone. As I heard earlier, two staff members at the Beatitude House right now. And we don't even call them staff meetings when we have staff meetings anymore. We call them team meetings, because really the team is, it could be an intern that we have from Ashtabula, which we've had hosted two already. It could be a representative from Children's Services who works closely with us, with all of our families who are involved with Children's Services. It could be, of course it always is, the mental health counselor from Community Counseling Center. And so when we look at what our team is, we're not looking at paid staff anymore. We're looking at a team of volunteers, community members, and professionals in the community. Your stuff, anything that can furnish an apartment. When people come in, we furnish the apartment completely. Typically they come in with clothes on their backs and maybe a couple suitcases. And when they leave, we want to furnish them with everything they need for their new apartment. So everything from beds to dressers to dish drainers to laundry hampers, for new or used, we accept all year round. Your money. The Adopt a Apartment program is a program where you, your civic organization, or your church can sponsor an apartment for a commitment of 2 years. And I'm looking at someone in the audience like they're going to tell me the answers. But if you're interested in that program, the flyer is in the back on your way out. If you're interested in volunteering, there is a yellow slip on the way out that you can leave your information with us. Your support, and by that I mean not just your prayers, not just your finances, not just your donations, but supporting Getting Ahead, supporting Goodwill, supporting Community Action, supporting Catholic Charities, supporting your church. That all supports the mission that we do at Beatitude House, because as I said, we work closely with all of those agencies. So for example, we ask that we do not accept clothing because we don't have a good place to store it and keep it and sort it, but there are many clothing banks in the community that do. And by supporting them with your donations, that supports us, because that's where our clients shop. And finally, your ear. When we talked about Getting Ahead, we talked about bridges out of poverty. Richard Carson says that research tells us that people are more likely to change when we reverse the flow of communication, when people are not talked at and when they themselves have a chance to talk. And you have been talked at for a good 30 minutes here. So I'm going to end with Albert Einstein said that everything that can be counted counts, and that everything that counts can be counted. And with that, I'm going to end with a story about Bunny. And Bunny was our ambassador. She won our ambassador award at our annual dinner, and she won that award because of her ability, her desire and enthusiasm to promote Beatitude House wherever she went, and to allow donations to come in on Saturdays, to answer the phone, to answer the doors, be resident buddies to new people. She's obviously, as you can see, she's not a typical client because of her age, but she lost her driver's license, and once she lost her driver's license, she lost her job. Once she lost her job, she had to move in with family. And she says, I really thought that this would be a good thing, living in with family, but what I didn't know is that they were involved with drugs. They often sold off household items and stole to support their habit. One day while I was gone, they moved out of the house, and it soon became clear that they hadn't even been paying the rent or utilities. So now I was homeless with nowhere to go. I slept in the bushes for a few days with only a blanket and a pillow while I tried to figure out what to do. A neighbor saw me and cared enough to take me into her home. It was this neighbor who took me to the Samaritan House. While at the Samaritan House, she received a referral to the Beatitude House, where she attended all of the job training workshops, all of our modules, She opened and maintained savings and checking accounts. She received new glasses through the Lions Club, and now she's enrolled in a job training program with Mature Services where she gains new skills working at the Senior Center in the Meals on the Meals program. She says, this responsibility has helped me to realize that I have many talents and skills that can be used in a work environment. And as a result of being a participant at the Beatitude House, I no longer feel so alone, and I am an empowered woman. She says, thank you all, and I thank you all for listening this morning. Anyone has any questions? I love talking, as you can see. Yes, Kathy.
I would think for those who had an abusive relationship, this would make it even better. She's doing well.
Sure. For those of you who understand an abusive relationship, a domestic violence relationship, there's a lot of power and control that goes in there. And once the woman in the relationship starts having successes at the Beatitude House, for example, where she can have a longer stay, she can start doing some longer term goals, that's very intimidating for someone who's had her under their control for so long. And so we are a secure facility. All of our doors are locked. We have security cameras installed, and there's a strict policy to be abided by when it comes to abusers. And so we try to do everything we can to support them to be able to anticipate those changes. And a lot of that comes through the mental health counseling as well, being able to anticipate those issues that are going to come up in that relationship, because in many cases this may still be the father of your child. And there's still that desire to want to have a healthy father in your child's life. Brent?
I just wanted to tell you, this is such a can-do organization. It's been, 3 or 4 years ago, I was part of a small group. Jackie, you were there too. And talking about, would we be able to do this in Ashtabula County? And how much would it cost? And the folks came up from Youngstown, and the sister was there, and they said, oh, we think we can get it all off the ground for about $2.2 million. And I fell out of my chair, because it was a tough time. And everybody else in the group said, yeah, we can do that. I was so impressed, and you're doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. People often ask, if I donate, if I write a check, if I donate, is that going to come to Ashtabula? And certainly anytime you designate any of your funds to the Ashtabula site, it will of course go here. We're very strict about that. But oftentimes you didn't have to designate it because before this $95,000 grant, all of the donations to the Beatitude House were coming to Ashtabula site, so you had people in Youngstown who were supporting us here in Ashtabula. We had people in Trumbull County who were supporting us here in Ashtabula because we didn't have the sustaining funds from the government yet to be able to do that. So that's another way in which you can see how people have really come together, even from different areas of the state. Yeah.
Are there strings attached to that $95,000? I'm sure there are.
There are always strings attached to government funding. Fortunately, we were pretty smart about setting up this site. So when we set up this site, we modeled it after the other two sites, which are also receiving state funding. And so all of our compliance is in place, our paperwork, our documentation, our basically assuring that we're treating them fairly is already in place. And so we hopefully won't have to do anything new to be able to meet those requirements.
I mean, is it earmarked, like you can only use it for this program, not that program?
Actually, it is operations. It's operations. Operations is a tough thing to get funding for, and so that's why this has been such a blessing. All right. Thank you again for that, and I will be here if anyone has any other questions.